You're listening to That Teacher podcast, hosted by me, Alyssa McDonald. I'm that teacher who decided enough was enough and started an online business to fund my own 2-year maternity leave from my teaching job. This journey has been life-changing, bringing me opportunities to lead and grow in ways I never thought possible. Now, I'm on a mission to help other educators, moms, and impact-focused entrepreneurs find ways to build the online business of their dreams so they can have the time freedom and financial freedom they deserve. So grab a cup of coffee and let's bring your wildest dreams to life. I did a thing this week and I told people about a Facebook group I had started, I think back in the fall, called Sell Your TPT Store. Because I noticed a lot of people were posting their TPT store for sale in different Facebook groups. And, when I see something that needs to be organized better, I'm like, oh, I'll just do it. And then I find myself down a rabbit hole. So here I am. I thought I would create a space for TPT sellers to share their stores for sale and to look at stores that they could potentially buy for investment. And now here I am talking to you about buying and selling your TPT store. Disclaimer, I'm not an expert in TPT stores for sure. And I'm not a complete expert in buying and selling businesses, though I do know quite a bit about it, enough to record this podcast episode and give you some basic information to help you get started learning about it. And then I said this in the Facebook group, I let people know I'm not the go-to expert on this, but I will definitely hold space for this and keep it organized and bring in any learning resources so that we can all benefit from this. Because one thing I do understand is that it can be very beneficial for both people with a TPT store to sell their TPT store, to buy a TPT store, to sort of like merge these efforts is actually a really great thing on both sides. And I would love, I love it when educators succeed. So I would love to see this sort of mutually beneficial transaction take place and help you feel more comfortable with that. That being said, if you don't have a TPT store, anything that you build in your business is sellable. I've done this a couple of times with past businesses. You know that I had a store back in 2012 with my sister. At the end of that business, when that business was coming to a close, you still have all of the stuff from the work you've put in over the years, and you've invested time and money into your business. You deserve to then be able to take that investment and cash in on it. And for us with the store, it meant, just kind of like selling it for parts, right? We sold all of the inventory that we had left, including all of our fixtures, our cash register, anything that we had available, we were able to then sell it. The name, the signage, all of that stuff. So if you think about your online business in the same way you would think about selling off a physical business, you have lots of different things that you've invested your time and money in over the years that are sellable, and they're very attractive to buyers. So in this podcast episode, I'm going to go over what you can sell, why you would sell, why someone would buy, because I know you're probably thinking like, who's going to buy this? Why is it beneficial for someone to buy? If you're a potential buyer, I'm going to focus mostly on selling in this podcast episode, but it will still benefit you, I think, to hear the overview. And then toward the end, I'm going to talk to buyers specifically about some risks you should pay attention to. And then I'm also going to talk about how to set your price, how to get ready, how to get your data room ready as a seller, and then what to look for as a buyer. So I'm going to kind of touch on both sides in this episode. Again, at a very introductory level, remembering I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an accountant, I'm not a business broker. I'm just somebody who knows business development and has sold or prepared for sale or valuated a few businesses in my time. Okay. Let's dive into what you can sell. Okay, so you can sell your TPT store. That would be the name of your store, the actual login to your store, all of the products in your store, the followers, right? That's all valuable stuff. The previews, the thumbnails, that's all valuable. Also, unfinished digital products. Oh, by the way, I said TPT store, but that could also be an Etsy store, Shopify store, whatever combination. You can sell unfinished products that just need to be finished up and then they could be listed. You could sell your blog. your email list, though there are some like legality things there. So that is a risk to note. Your social media logins, your if you have an online course, the IP for your course, the actual like either the videos themselves. It depends though, because a lot of us, when we do an online course, we're like recording our personal selves. So that would be kind of weird to sell, but maybe you could sell the slides or the curriculum outline or the materials or whatever. There's always, again, you can sell for parts. So anything that you've put time and money into can then be sold. Now, why would you do this? Why would you ever want to sell your business either in its entirety or sell it off for parts? It's because maybe you're burned out. Maybe you've decided to change your focus and focus on a different business. That happens all the time. Maybe you had a financial circumstance where like you just need to cash in on your investment now and you're willing to take a hit on future profits because you need the cash now. Or maybe the market conditions are just good. Like maybe you are thinking, okay, I see this ship sinking and I want out. Now, I'm not saying that TPT's ship is sinking, but there are some people who believe that it is. So maybe you're trying to get out. But on the buyer side, there are some people that are really optimistic about it. And so they're looking to cash in. Now, my belief is that TPT is changing. I don't think it's sinking completely. It's definitely changing. So I see this merging of stores as mutually beneficial for everybody and for the entire ecosystem of TPT, because we're pulling things together in a better way. So I won't get on my high horse about that, but there are many reasons you might sell. And why would somebody buy? Who is out there with all this money like ready to buy, right? It's maybe other TPT sellers who are seeing success, but they want to maybe even pull your resources in with theirs and double their offerings in their store. Or maybe they want to run multiple stores. Maybe they see a potential for more profit. Maybe they want access to your customers. Maybe they don't even want your digital products. They just want your email list. Maybe they think they can scale it and they can see even better profits because they have the time and money to invest into it. Maybe they're a new seller and they're just, especially as even with a blog, if your blog is established over time and it's got great search engine optimization, like it's really hard to start that from scratch. So maybe someone just wants a head start on their business by buying something that you've put a lot of time into. And a lot of people just buy businesses as a financial investment for the same reason you would invest in the stock market. You buy businesses to try to enhance your overall portfolio. It's one piece of the portfolio. The most important thing, and I know the thing that you're like, okay, this sounds interesting, but like, how much money could I get? That depends on a million different factors. What I don't want you to do is go out and just search like business financial valuation calculator or something like that, because the calculator will give you an answer and that can be a starting point. There are many different kinds of calculators and it's kind of not an exact science when you are putting a price on your business. It's a lot of educational guesswork, right? So I'm going to give you some basic formulas that are used. There are different formulas that are used. There are many things to take into consideration. And then what I would do is give yourself a range. I would be totally thrilled if I was able to sell my business between this price and this price. The great thing about doing that is you're leaving yourself room for negotiation. And, that's always a good thing when it comes to buying and selling in general. But we need to just have an idea of your range for your number, right? And it's a very personal decision. It's like pricing anything that you're going to put up for sale. If you're going to put something for sale on Facebook Marketplace, I'm looking at my Keurig coffee maker, right? I have this coffee maker. I never use it. I listed it on Facebook Marketplace for $50. How did I do that? I looked at what are other Keurig coffee makers selling for on Marketplace. What's the full price of a Keurig coffee maker? What's like the lowest I would take for it, right? I started at $50. Nobody bought it. I brought it down to 40. Finally, somebody bought it. It's the same exact thing with a business. We're going to look at some anchor points, like what are other businesses like this selling for? What does the market look like? What would I be willing to take? What do I need? These are all factors. It's a very holistic process. So I'll try to like just give you all the different considerations, and then you can kind of start to come up with your number. You can also consult with different parties that know more about your business. If you have a lawyer or an accountant and you're trying to pull this stuff together, like, get some of that advice, but this will give you a number to kind of start with. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to look at your financial history. So this is going to take some work, but look at your store's revenue. I'm going to say store, even though this is more broadly talking about any business you could sell. Could be a course business, could be a digital store, digital product store, it could be a blog, whatever. What's the revenue that was bringing in? And by the way, if it was a blog, it would be like, is it bringing in affiliate revenue or advertising revenue? That's how you can look at the revenue directly of a piece of your business, like the blog. What are the metrics associated with that thing that have brought in revenue? It's the same with social and email. How much of that were you able to turn into sales? That's important. But just to keep it like really easy, let's just talk about a store. So you're going to look at the revenue of your store at least over the last 3 years. You can pull more historical data or less historical data than that, but the past 3 years is a pretty good indicator. And then you can look at monthly sales or annual sales. We'll talk annually for the purposes of this podcast episode. Revenue, though, is not the only thing that matters here. We also need to know how much did it cost you to get to that revenue, right? If you made $100,000, that sounds really great. But if it took you $90,000 worth of, expenses to get there, then that wouldn't be great. That's probably not the case with a digital business. That's more risky if you're looking at like a physical business where the cost of goods sold was really high. You probably don't have a huge overhead, so you're probably fine with expenses, but it is good to note all of your expenses over the past 3 years. Could be less than that, could be more, but start to gather all that data in one place. And this is what I'm going to talk about a little further on in the episode, that we call a data room. And this is where you start to pull together all the documentation that someone who is buying your business might want to see for proof. It's helpful to get it together at the stage where you're setting the price, because then you can look at everything all in one place. So we're looking at your revenue, we're looking at your expenses, and then we're taking those two numbers and we're finding the difference between the two. 5th grade math, I can do this, to determine your profitability. So just your expenses, your revenue minus your expenses. Now, some people include what they pay themselves in their expenses. So if you're giving yourself a salary or you're taking like an owner's draw, again, not an accountant, but some people will count that number in their expenses, assuming they've taken like a regular amount, a very like average salary. You could also like put that as a separate line item when making your calculation. It'll depend on the person buying and what they want to see. But let's just talk revenue, expenses. And the difference between the two is called profitability. So looking at the profitability of your store gives you some good information because it takes into account that revenue, the revenue and those expenses. But there are other pieces to look at. So we've got profitability. We also need to look at what are the assets we have here beyond profitability, because sometimes an asset could make money. For example, let's say you have a really established blog. I'm going to use a different example, not teaching related. Like, let's say you have a really established recipe blog that does not have advertising on it yet. So it's not making any money, but it's really established. It's a great asset. It could make money if the person were to run ads on it. So you still have something really sellable, even though your profitability is 0. So we need to look at your content and your assets. What is the quality of the assets you have? Like, do they need to be updated? Like, or are they like, do they need to be edited, or are they top quality? How many of these assets do you have? Now, assets could be digital products. Again, could be blog posts, could be really anything. If it's YouTube videos, any piece of content that you have that you've put time and money into. And then are the assets, we'll talk digital products for ease of use here, are they in demand? Are they the kinds of digital products people are looking for? That's going to make that more attractive to the buyer of your business. Another asset you have is your customer base. So we talked about your email list, your TPT followers, the people in your world, the people on your social media, as long as they are engaged. And if they buy, that's even better. So a large, loyal customer base can really enhance the value here. You can see where profitability is a starting point, but then if you have a really valuable asset, but you just haven't really monetized it yet, that can still lead to a higher price on your business. That's why these calculators they just can't be exact. You have to take all this into consideration. And then branding, like think about the stuff you've spent money on over the years. Did you spend money to have your website redone, your logo redone? Have you built brand reputation within the community? All of that is really valuable. It's not part of your profitability necessarily, but it's all valuable stuff that can be sold. Okay, so considering that big picture, profitability and assets, I'm going to give you just the basic calculator numbers. This is what you're going to get if you go online and you try to use any kind of business valuation calculator. Again, starting point. There are two main methods that people use. One is just a revenue multiple. So looking at total revenue, that's not taking out your expenses, just total revenue, and then multiplying it to an industry average. So the number that I hear a lot is 2x. So 2x your annual revenue. So let's say over the 3 years, let's just take last year. Okay. Last year you made $100,000. Okay. All you're going to do is in the 2x model, 2x it. So then you would sell for $200,000 or 2.5x, $250,000. This is, again, though, a literal starting point. It doesn't mean someone will buy your business for $200,000. It doesn't mean you should only sell your business for $200,000 and nothing else should come into consideration. Remember, we're considering all of those assets. We're considering market trends. We're considering the quality and quantity of your products. We're considering what's trending in our industry. Are we on trend? Are we off trend? What are the different risks here? So thinking about all of that is not just an end answer, but it will give you a starting point. There is one other sort of calculation method, which is profit-based valuation. This is looking at your revenue minus expenses. Your multiplier is going to be a little bit higher. So usually the multiplier for this one is more like 3x because you're taking expenses out. It's just another way of looking at these numbers. Okay, so let's say that you made that same $100,000, but you had 20K in expenses. So your your net profit after expenses was 80,000. Then you would multiply that by 3 to get 240,000 for your valuation starting number. Again, just a different way of calculating it, and so many other factors to take into consideration. I kind of hate giving you these like standard calculations because it is so much more than that. But it is a good starting place and it can help you come up with a range. You can also combine the two. Like if you want to take this at a more holistic look at this, you could also look at kind of both of them put together, kind of give yourself a range, right? Your buyer is going to do the same thing. They're going to use these same formulas. So you're going to provide them with your revenue history. So whether they look at last year or they look at an average over the 3 years, you can make all these different calculations and then kind of look at everything you have and get your ideal range based on all of that stuff. They're going to do the same. They're going to want to look at all of your numbers. They're going to want to do these same calculations. They're going to want to see a list of all the different assets you have, how they're performing, and they're going to want to make their decision and get their number. So the next thing we need to do after you have kind of your range, we need to get your data room in place. One thing I want to say though, before I start talking about data room, you do not have to have $100,000 in revenue to sell your store. You can have $0 in revenue and sell your store. You could sell assets only, just your products. Maybe your store hasn't even made $1, but you have 20 digital products. You can sell those. A little harder to price because you're just pricing based on asset. You're just pricing based on quantity and quality of your digital product and what you think it could make. So you're going to want to like project out profit. I think you could price it at this. I think you could sell this many based on market trends. It's much more of a guess, but you don't have to be even making any revenue to sell. Similarly, let's say over the past 3 years, you've made 5,000 bucks. You're thinking, oh my gosh, I can't sell till I make 100,000. No, you can sell right now. It's not going to be for as much, right? But you could still use that same number. Let's say, okay, my business annual revenue is $5,000. I'm going to multiply that by 2. I should be able to sell this for $10,000 because somebody's going to be able to take that $5,000 and turn it into 10, 20, 30, because they're going to put in more time and money of an investment, or they're going to add it to their own store, whatever. There are many different reasons you can sell for a lower price if you're just like, I'm done, I want out, and I want to like not have to worry about my store continuing to run, and I want to cash in on this thing because I spent money on it. Totally. You totally can. In fact, a lot of buyers, by the way, like to scoop up smaller deals like that. It's a really cool opportunity for other buyers to, or for buyers to expand their business. Okay. Data room. So a data room is literally just a Google folder. Okay. We're just going to put in this Google folder a bunch of stuff, and we're going to get it really organized so that somebody who is there and wants to purchase your business or is considering purchasing your business. Now, you would not share this data room until you were really serious with this buyer. Maybe you've vetted them, you've talked to them, you've met with them. Then you might think about sharing your data room, but we're just going to get it organized to get you ready for selling. There's a lot of work to do to be ready to sell your business. You don't want to go into this completely unorganized. So your data room is a Google folder, and inside, and you can make a little table of contents. Inside, we're going to put in all your financial statements. We're going to put in any important metrics and numbers, like how many customers you have, how engaged they are, any marketing analytics, any kind of data point that someone who is buying your business would want to see. We're also going to put in there any sort of, if you have a trademark or copyright information, any sort of legal stuff that you have in place, we're going to put that in there so they can take a look. We are going to make sure your expenses are in there, any operating costs, any hiring you've done, anything you've paid yourself, all of those numbers need to be in there. And profitability numbers should be in there as well. You can make a table of contents. You can put these in, Google Sheets or however you store this data, and then put it in this data room to be able to share it when you're ready to talk negotiation with someone. They are going to want to see these numbers before they negotiate. And so you might also want to, like, again, not a lawyer, not a business broker, but if this were me, I would maybe want to get a lawyer involved at that point in case you want to sign some confidentiality agreement before you show this data room. Again, I have no idea if there's any truth to that, but me personally, I would feel more comfortable getting a lawyer involved before I go sharing a data room. And then, okay, I mentioned intellectual property in this data room folder just so they can see that you have it and verify that. But the second thing we're going to want to do to get organized for a sale is to actually organize the stuff we're going to be handing over when the sale takes place. And you can do this a little further down the road, or you can do it now if you're trying to prep, or maybe you just want to get an idea of what you have. It's just get organized. And this is going to take a while, right? Depending on how messy your Google Drive is, this is going to take a while. Look at your Google Drive and say, okay, if I were going to sell the contents of this Google Drive and the contents of my business, how do I need to get it organized so that I can transfer it over to someone easily? This could be a really big, lengthy job. If you go back to what I was saying, we sold our store, this came down to like having to literally organize this stuff and then price it and put it out for sale, right? You're getting everything ready for transference. So what do we want in this folder? I'm going to give you a long list of what might go in this folder just so that you don't forget anything, but really like looking at everything in your Google Drive. It's probably sellable. We're going to want all your logins and passwords in there, right? We're going to want all of your assets. This includes your product files, the digital files, the copies of what's in your store, right? Any educational resources that you are selling that are sitting in your Google Drive, even if they're not finished, those would be something you would pass on. Any copyright documentation, any licensing agreements, trademark documentation, your store's customers' actual information, whether you have just like demographic data on your customers. If it's a TPT store, like where are my buyers? If you don't have their email addresses, that's okay. If you have their email addresses, even better. We're going to want to get that ready for sale. Make sure you have all of your branding stuff in there. Even if you have like a document that talks about your brand voice, that goes in there. Logos, any marketing materials, templates, advertisements, social posts, email campaigns, blog content, copies of content, analytics data. Oh, analytics data, we will also want to have in your data room. I think I said social media analytics, but I forgot website traffic, especially if you're selling your blog, conversion rates from landing pages, all that stuff can go in your data room, but you're also going to want to have it here to be ready to be transferred because your buyer is going to want to take a look at that traffic again once they buy. Anything in your tech stack that you have a login for that you have history in. So if you've used something to operate your store in the past that this person is going to need to log into, for example, if you use Shopify, they're going to need to log into that. It's like your website, they're going to need access to that. Anything we're going to have to transfer the billing over to them, maybe start to make a list of that so that when you're transferring everything to them, you can actually go in and say, okay, well, we need to like transfer this Bluehost account to you. Start to think about all of that stuff now. If you have any workflows or standard operating procedures that you use with your team, we're going to want those in there. Any legal documents, terms of service that you've put together, any privacy policies that you've spent money on having put together for your business, contracts, anything like that. We're going to put that in this folder to get ready to transfer. And then we're going to get it all organized. You want a detailed inventory of what's in there. Now, my other business, we have a business that we prepared for sale like this that had a lot of logins and passwords and website and content assets, stuff like this. One of the best things we did was create this detailed inventory. So we just had a Google Doc where we listed out every single asset that was in that drive, almost like a table of contents, so that we could be sure we didn't forget anything and so that we could go over that document with the buyer when it came time to transfer it. We also created like a little presentation of what was in there so that we could easily transfer it over, and we could kind of you're almost going to want to train your buyer on what's going on with your business so that they can just take off and they don't have to like call you after the sale, right? And you guys can decide, you and the buyer can decide on how that'll all work and how much training you want to provide, but you want to be able to like give them everything they need and send them on their way so that you're not worried about it after the sale takes place. Okay, I think I covered everything as far as your data room and getting organized for the sale. Now, we've come up with our price range, we've gotten organized. Who the heck is buying this thing and where am I supposed to find them? This is a little tricky in the TPT world, which is why I started that Facebook group. It seems to be in pockets all over the place. People are sort of dropping something in a TPT Facebook group. I heard that they're dropping it on the TPT forum. Again, I'm not an expert in TPT itself, so just in business development. So I don't actually know what's going on the TPT forum or anything like that. But I did notice that it was pretty disorganized as far as like, where can I find stores for sale and where can I sell my store? That's why I opened this Facebook group for that purpose. I also just created a very simple Airtable form that you can fill out to list your store publicly. I have a form you fill out to list it publicly, and then I have like a grid of stores for sale. And then I don't show publicly any stores that are for sale over $5,000. I'm working on a process for vetting buyers who want to look at the stores that are over $5,000 in valuation. But let's say you have something like a smaller store to sell. That's a really great place to just kind of like publicly post that your store is for sale and get buyers that are trying to scoop up those smaller deals. So you can look in Facebook groups. You can come on over to my Facebook group. I'll link it below. You can actually like reach out to other sellers who you think might be able to buy your business and whose business you think yours would complement. I feel like I said that backwards. Like, let's say there's a TPT seller that you're thinking, you know what? I sell speech and language stuff. This is a big speech and language seller in my niche. I'm going to like directly approach them and say, hey, I'm putting my store up for sale before I post it publicly over in the Facebook group. I'd love to offer it to you. Would you be interested in buying? You could do like that sort of direct outreach. And then we're going to get into talks. So how do you get into talks? I see a lot of people saying, oh, DM me, DM me, DM me. And I think that that's fine, but I just want to warn you that that's also risky because you don't know really who you're DMing with unless it's a trusted person that you already know from the TPT community. But please be careful with just email and DM communication. You're going to want to like hop on Zoom, get on a call with this person. This is could potentially be a very big transaction. Please take precautions to be sure you're selling to like a real legit buyer. And this is again where you're going to maybe want to bring a lawyer in or a business broker, depending on how you want to do this. But you're going to then go into negotiations, just like you're selling something on Facebook Marketplace, right? They're maybe going to give you an offer. You're going to give them your number. You're going to negotiate the terms of the sale. What's the price? What are the terms of the payment? Anything else that's relevant to your sale. And then after that is when they're going to want to probably take a look at your data room to make sure that the stuff you're telling them is true. So you told them your revenue, you told them your profitability, you told them your expenses, but are you telling the truth? They're going to want to see that. So that at that point, you would maybe show them your data room, let them do due diligence on you to make sure that you're telling the truth, to verify that these financials and other metrics are in fact there, and it's not just you talking about it. And then you're going to go into legal. You're going to want to talk to a lawyer, get some professionals to draft up your sales agreement, possibly look at actually like how am I actually conducting this transaction? Am I like giving them a login and password first? Or are they giving me the money first? Is someone holding the money in escrow? It can be simple if it's a lower price transaction, but if this is a higher price transaction, you really need some help here for transference of ownership. And that would be a business broker who could handle that. Now, buyers. I didn't talk much to buyers here, but buyers, just be careful. Make sure when you're considering buying, even if it's a smaller purchase, think about the market trends. Make sure you're not buying a store that's relying heavily on something that is like maybe copyrighted, because that copyright claim could cost you a lot of money. Don't buy a store that is based on something that is trending and that trend could fade. So I'm thinking like stores that are doing really well, but actually they're selling like book companions to a book, and you're like, that's going to pose a copyright issue. Or for example, this is probably a bad example, but let's say their whole store was based on like Lucy Calkins' work in kindergarten, right? Like that was trending at a time and now it's not. So just be sure. That was a terrible example. That was really not nice. And I don't want to get myself in the reading wars. Okay. But I'm just saying, consider that the thing that you're buying is not a trend that's going to go out of style, or is not based upon some sort of foundation that could crumble, like a copyright issue. You're going to want to take a lot of precautions when you're thinking about your investment. But I know a lot of that sounds scary. You're like, oh my God, I need a lawyer. I need a business broker. Oh my gosh. It doesn't have to be scary, especially on those smaller transactions. And it can be a great way for people to cash in on the time and money they've put in, for buyers to grow their stores, for us to all start to kind of like merge and see this mutually beneficial outcome from our work and our pride and our joy and the impact we want to have on education. We can boost that by coming together in this way. I hope you found this episode helpful. Again, I don't know everything there is to know here, so I'll be sharing more in the Facebook group as I continue to learn with you about business buying and selling. And I'm interested myself in making a few purchases. So make sure you share your store and your assets over there in the group so we can take a little peek and combine our forces for the good. All right, I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for listening to That Teacher Podcast. I have a lot of resources for you in the show notes. Make sure you subscribe to my Monday mixtapes and tune in here to the podcast to learn more business and marketing strategy to help grow your business to the business of your dreams so that you can have the financial wiggle room you've been hoping for. Looking forward to supporting you in your journey.